There's a number that tells the entire story of Mike Chernoff's decade running the Cleveland Guardians better than any contract or trade or draft pick or scouting report ever could. The number is 7. 7 American League Central Division titles in 10 seasons. 1916, 1917, 1918, 2022, 2024, 2025. 7 division championships. 7 times the Cleveland Guardians, a small market franchise in a Rust Belt city with a payroll that ranked 29th out of 30 teams in Major League Baseball entering 2026, a franchise that Chernoff himself told the Foul Territory podcast it was impossible to sign top free agents given the current economic landscape, finished first in their division. Not contended, not made the playoffs as a wild card and hoped for the best, won the division, year after year after year. While the New York Yankees and the Houston Astros and the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves were spending $200, $250, $300 million on their rosters, while the teams with the largest television contracts and the highest ticket prices and the most corporate sponsorship revenue were deploying resources that the Cleveland Guardians could not match in any traditional financial competition, Mike Chernoff won anyway. Through scouting, through development, through the specific organizational philosophy that he described in that Foul Territory interview in a sentence that should be printed on the wall of every small market front office in baseball. We have to do it through scouting and development. That sentence, not as an excuse, not as a rationalization for failing to spend what the big market teams spend, as a genuine strategic vision that has produced 7 division championships in 10 seasons from a franchise that most analysts writing their preseason previews treat as an afterthought. And on the morning of March 14, 2026, 13 days before opening day, that same franchise is sending José Ramírez into his first spring training game since signing the most team-friendly superstar extension in modern baseball history. A 7-year, $175 million deal that will keep the greatest player in Cleveland Guardians history in this city through his age 39 season. The man who hit 30 home runs and stole 44 bases and finished third in the MVP race in 2025, and who is currently in Goodyear, Arizona, hitting 3-run home runs in spring training like the extension never happened, like nothing ever happened, like the only thing that ever mattered was getting back on the field and making the pitchers pay for every pitch they threw in the strike zone. This is the complete story of José Ramírez and Mike Chernoff and the Cleveland Guardians. Where they came from, what they built, why the league still does not fully respect what they have done, and whether 2026, despite the 29th ranked payroll, despite the offense that finished 28th in baseball in weighted runs created last season, despite every projection that has Cleveland finishing 4th in the AL Central, is the year the rest of baseball finally has to admit that this franchise, run this way, by these people, has figured out something that the big spenders have not. Start with José Ramírez. Not with the statistics, though the statistics are extraordinary, with where he came from and who he is, and why the specific combination of talent and loyalty and humility that defines him makes him not just the best player in Cleveland Guardians history, but one of the most remarkable athletes in the sport today. José Ramírez was born September 17, 1992, in Baní, Dominican Republic, a coastal city in Paravia province, about 50 miles southwest of Santo Domingo. Baní is known as a place of musicians and artists. The poet and composer Juan Antonio Alix was born there, and the city has a cultural identity built around creativity and expression that coexists alongside the poverty that defines much of the Dominican Republic's interior. Ramírez grew up in modest circumstances in a country where baseball is not merely a sport, but a genuine pathway, one of the few pathways, out of poverty and into a different kind of life. He signed with the Cleveland organization as an international amateur free agent in July 29, 2009, at 16 years old. The signing bonus was approximately $50,000, the same sum that major league teams routinely spend on a single hotel room during spring training.
For Ramírez, it was the beginning of everything. He spent 5 years in Cleveland's minor league system, ascending through the Dominican Summer League, the Arizona League, Single-A Lake County, High-A Carolina, Double-A Akron, and Triple-A Columbus. Those 5 years, grinding through bus rides and minor league meal money and the specific psychological challenge of being a young Dominican player 6,000 miles from home, trying to make it in a system designed to produce useful parts rather than showcase individual talent, built something in Ramírez that the statistics cannot fully capture. They built patience. They built the work ethic that his manager Stephen Volt has described as the single most important element of his sustained excellence. And they built the switch hitting ability, he bats from both sides of the plate, that was developed and refined and perfected through years of quiet practice in facilities that were never the most glamorous in the minor league system.
He made his major league debut on September 1st, 2013. A Tuesday night in Cleveland at what was then Progressive Field in a late-season call-up that was more developmental preview than genuine contribution. He was 20 years old. He went 0 for 2. He returned to the minors and kept working. And in 2014, he came back and began the most sustained period of offensive excellence by any player in Cleveland Guardians history. The numbers over 12 Major League seasons defy easy summarization, but they must be summarized, because the specific achievements, the milestones, the awards, the moments that established his place in the game's hierarchy are the foundation of understanding why the January 24, 2026 contract extension was not merely a business transaction, but a statement about what baseball can look like when the right player meets the right organization at the right moment in both of their lives. He has won 6 Silver Slugger awards, more than any third baseman in the history of Major League Baseball. He has been named to 7 All-Star games. He has finished in the top 10 of the American League MVP voting in 8 consecutive seasons, including 2 runner-up finishes in 2017 and 2022, and a third-place finish in 2025. He reached the 30 home run and 40 stolen base threshold in the same season, a combination that fewer than 10 players in the history of the sport have achieved. He is the franchise's all-time leader in runs batted in, doubles, extra base hits, and games played. He has done all of this in Cleveland, only in Cleveland, for a team that has paid him, by the standards of what comparable players have earned in comparable careers, a fraction of his market value. In 2022, when Ramírez signed his first major extension, 5 years, $124 million, multiple analysts noted that a player of his production could have commanded significantly more on the open market. He stayed. He said he wanted to be in Cleveland. He said the organization treated him with respect from the first day he arrived. He said he wanted to win a championship in the city that had given him his career. And then, in January 2026, with 3 years and $59 million remaining on that first extension, with the free agent market offering the kind of money that would have made any rational economic actor at least consider his options, Ramírez agreed to a new deal. 7 years, $175 million total. The contract extends through the 2032 season, when Ramírez will be 39 years old. The deal includes $25 million in 2026, with $10 million annually deferred without interest, plus performance bonuses, including $500,000 for winning the MVP award, $300,000 for finishing second or third, and $150,000 for finishing fourth or fifth. He receives 1 round-trip private air travel per year and 1 round-trip private air travel to the All-Star Game, with up to $200,000 covered per trip. Heavy sports. A hotel room on away trips. The greatest player in Cleveland Guardians history, the man who could have been playing for the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Astros for the last 3 years at twice the salary, negotiated a hotel room into his contract extension. Not because he needed the money,
because those are the kinds of details that matter to a man who remembers the minor leagues, who remembers the bus rides, who remembers what it means to sleep in a hotel room that is not adequate and to wake up the next morning and try to perform at an elite level anyway. That hotel room clause is more revealing about who José Ramírez is than any statistic in the baseball reference database. Ramírez signed a 7-year, $175 million extension with Cleveland over the offseason and appears primed for another big year, Lakers Nation. His spring training numbers confirm it. He crushed a 3-run homer to right off Antonio Menendez, his first long ball of the spring, which traveled 386 feet and delighted the home crowd, Pro Football Network. 386 feet in February, in his first significant spring training power display since signing a deal that locked him in Cleveland through his age 39 season. He tallied 4 RBI in a spring game, going 2 for 3 with a home run, a double, and 4 RBI against the Diamondbacks, looking to be in mid-season form during the Monday exhibition, Lakers Nation. Mid-season form in February. That is José Ramírez, the man who the Guardians built their entire organizational identity around, the man who on the first day of meaningful spring activity reminded everyone watching.
Michael Chernoff was born March 14, 1982, which means today, March 14, 2026, is his 44th birthday. He grew up in New Jersey, the son of a father who drove him hours to play catch, a detail that appeared in a headline during his early years with Cleveland, capturing the specific kind of baseball family dedication that produces people who spend their entire professional lives inside the sport. He attended Princeton University, where he was a pre-law student who simultaneously pursued baseball not as a player but as an analyst. The emerging world of quantitative baseball evaluation was being built in the early 2000s, and Princeton was exactly the kind of academic environment where a curious, analytically minded young person could engage seriously with the questions of player evaluation and team construction that were beginning to transform the sport. He graduated from Princeton and joined the Cleveland Indians organization, as it was then called, in the early 2000s, working his way up through the baseball operations department under the mentorship of Mark Shapiro, who would go on to become president of the Toronto Blue Jays, and Chris Antonetti, who remains the Guardians' president of baseball operations today. Chernoff became assistant general manager, and then, in November 2015, he was named general manager, the youngest GM in Major League Baseball at the time of his appointment, at 33 years old. He had been with the Cleveland organization for more than a decade. He had watched from inside the philosophy that produced Terry Francona's arrival as manager in 2013 and the organizational commitment to player development that would eventually produce the pitching pipeline that every analyst in the sport now considers one of the 3 or 4 best in baseball. And in his very first season as general manager, the Cleveland Indians won 94 games, captured the American League Central title, advanced to the American League Championship Series, where they defeated the Toronto Blue Jays 4-1, and appeared in the World Series for the first time since 1997. They lost to the Chicago Cubs in 7 games, in a Game 7 that came down to a rain delay and a Kyle Schwarber home run and a 10th-inning comeback that remains one of the most dramatic baseball games ever played. Cleveland lost, but they had arrived, and the man who had been in the building for a decade and who had just become general manager at 33 years old understood with complete clarity what winning looked like and what it required. Under Mike Chernoff's leadership, the Cleveland Guardians experienced a resurgence highlighted by their 2016 campaign, where they won 94 games, secured the AL Central title, and captured the American League pennant before falling to the Chicago Cubs in a 7-game World Series. The team followed with division championships in 2017 with 102 wins and 2018 with 91 wins, extending a 3-year title streak, and added further crowns in 2022, 2024, and 2025.
Yahoo Sports, 7 division titles in 9 years, the most by any AL Central franchise in that period. And he did it through the specific mechanism he described in the Foul Territory interview, scouting and development, because the alternative was never available to him. Chernoff told the Foul Territory podcast that it is impossible for the club to sign top-tier free agents given the rising fiscal disparity between the large revenue franchises and ones like the Guardians. He said they have to do things differently, that they are a small market, and that in today's economic environment in baseball, they cannot go out and sign top-tier free agents. He said they have to do it through scouting and development. Basketball Network. Impossible. He used that word. And to anyone tracking the Guardians' payroll, Cleveland has a $94.7 million luxury tax payroll for the 2026 season, 29th in MLB, higher only than the $78.1 million Marlins. The team has cut more than $30 million from its payroll this year and is at their lowest level since 2022. 29th of 30, in a league where the New York Yankees' payroll is 3 times higher, where the Los Angeles Dodgers spend more money on a single pitcher than Cleveland spends on their entire roster, where the playing field is as uneven as it has ever been.